Well, I have to say this about the Doomcock video. It was really simplistic that Leia, attention people, Leia is apparently very important to the original trilogy. I know that may have been an esoteric, radical feminist, crazy communist hypothesis, but apparently Leia, she was kind of important in the original trilogy. And I'm not joking, that's what he's upset about, that Kenobi ended in a way that retconned the original trilogy. And of course, he doesn't provide any. Of course, he provides no evidence it did retcon anything. But let's hear him spout and moan about nothingness.
And one glimpse of Luke sitting on Tatooine goes by really quick. If you blinked, you'd fucking miss it. Leia is the reason that he survives. Leia is the one he survives for. Oh my God, she's the important one. She's the bestest ever. These pieces of shit, writing this garbage, directing this garbage, producing this garbage, cannot let go of agenda for even a moment. Luke isn't important. It was Leia, and the thought of Leia with one quick cut of Luke, probably like 20 cuts of Leia, one cut of Luke, Obi-Wan finds the strength to hurl the rocks away and crawl out of the pit. Oh my God almighty.
Okay, well, let's try to take this seriously. So, Kenobi was facing death. He thinks about Leia and Luke. He does admit Luke was a part of it, and finds the will to fight Vader and defeat him, but then he walks away. And I often wonder about these people who supposedly love George Lucas but don't know anything about him. Well, that might be shocking, or maybe that diminishes the character, but he did that already. He did that in Revenge of the Sith. He defeated Vader, he sliced him up, and just walked away. In fact, in Kenobi, it makes way more sense because, well, it doesn't matter if he kills Vader, the Empire's still going to go forward. The whole point of the quote epic battle was a battle between friends and him trying to see if Vader still has Anakin in him, and Vader says no, which obviously sets up the original trilogy in the way they have the revelation with Luke and Obi-Wan. I think this is all pretty obvious. It could have been done better, the fight could have been, quote, more fancy or better special effects or whatever, but his point would be, but no, Leia's so important. Well, there's a problem with that. Namely, that's what George Lucas wanted. That, in fact, was a major part of his plans for the sequel trilogy. For his sequel trilogy, Leia would be extremely important. This is something almost everyone who has reported on this has converged on. Leia was going to become the chosen one in the Lucas sequel trilogy. So, Leia jumping up in importance is not at all perverting the intention of the first film or the original trilogy, or in any way goes against George Lucas. That's what George Lucas would have wanted. That's what George Lucas said he wanted. That's what George Lucas said he would do. This isn't something we can debate. This has been said numerous times and been confirmed and verified. So his major complaint is Kenobi ruins George Lucas. It destroys these original characters that he made. He stole these characters from a whole lot of other people, so the originality question, no, that doesn't make any sense. But let's still say these things. Star Wars is a great story, that's fine. But Leia having central importance in no way perverts the intentions of George Lucas. It just doesn't. This completely harmonizes with his intentions for his sequel trilogy. You may not like that, then you may not like his ideas for the sequel trilogy and where he wanted to go with it, but it is a fact that's where he intended to go. Maybe he would have changed his mind at the last minute, but in terms of all the data we have, all we know about the sequel trilogy up to this date tells us Leia was going to be of massive importance in that sequel trilogy. And she would have had the Force powers, and she would have been anointed the chosen one. So your issue with Kenobi is this is way too close with George Lucas's vision, if he was telling the truth. But in his weirdo Nazi fascist racist brain, Reva staying alive ruins the original trilogy. How? Because now Leia is important, not Luke. Even though Luke, nothing has changed with him. They're not changing anything in the original trilogy. But in terms of the larger story, yes, Leia takes on much more importance in the Disney sequel trilogy, but also the George Lucas sequel trilogy. So you can complain about where Star Wars is going, but it was always going to go down this road. So there is no retcon. There's no retcon of the original trilogy. There's no retcon of the sequel trilogy. There's no retconning of the Lucas sequel trilogy. There's no retconning of the Lucas original trilogy. You're just babbling nonsense.
Around. That's why I'm not filming this. I'm just pacing around. Pacing around in my t-shirt and underwear and helmet.
Well, maybe he won't notice.
Pig and Blaine!
Very funny, Al.
From the planet where he fought Vader to Tatooine farmstead of Lars Owen in like what, 20 minutes? Anyway, Reva turns, a new leaf and cries and kneels, and Obi-Wan says we're both free now and helps her up, and
Oh, Kenobi shows Vader was a punk. He was a moron. He was an idiot. Yeah, that's in George Lucas too. Vader's supposed to be a moron. You're not supposed to identify with him. You're not supposed to mystify him or mythologize him as a great, extraordinary person. He's supposed to be pathetic. That was the point of the prequels. So, you don't seem to know the original trilogy. You don't seem to know the prequel trilogy. So in terms of knowing George Lucas Star Wars, your knowledge and contribution to the debate is zero.
Bold in terms of jerking people around, but I may have gone too far in a few places.